more time. OT, baby! Yay, OT! Woo!
Wow.
Because the congressman was not here. Well, you were here, but I was on vacation the last time you were here.
Yeah, it was
so
sad.
I watched you.
I mean,
from
we had a good time.
Orlando.
But it was sad, you know.
Yeah.
How did I do? You watched from Orlando.
I did.
You're supposed to like disconnect from work, right? When you're on vacation.
Yeah, no.
It's tough to do.
I like a little Outnumbered in my system.
There you go. It's a good show.
Yeah,
it's fun being here again.
Absolutely, well done.
I mean, you guys ganged up a little bit on me on Jeb, but I get it. It's all right.
It's stronger. What are we supposed to have? Recess consultants?
Yeah, that's what I need. I need a Jeb consultant, a recess consultant.
Have they called you yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Maybe they will.
Good thing you're getting on a plane. No, you were. Listen, it's not an easy job.
No, and it's. But you know what? That's what I like about kind of where I am in this is you feel liberated to just say what you believe, and I think that's the kind of leadership people need. Is just tell us what you think.
Well, if you're doing the right thing, you should be comfortable doing that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Have you gotten a call to go hunting with Paul Ryan?
No, not yet.
What about noodling?
Noodling, yeah, where you grab fish.
Yeah, where you fish with your bare hands like a real man.
No, I haven't, but I would definitely go noodling, so to speak.
Catfish sting. Yeah. I never understood that sport. They sting. Yeah, they got stingers. They got stingers and jowls. And I mean, Sandra knows. She's a fly fisher woman.
Yeah. Well, he's going. I'll tell you, Paul Ryan right now. I mean, his district borders mine actually, and I guarantee he is.
That's what I was asking. I'm thinking you guys need to go out for a little, Wisconsin.
All right. Now this is a little involved from the live chat, but it's a very thought out message. So I want to read this. Scribble 646. We need to adopt the strategy that Rand Paul laid out for the Senate instead of trying to eliminate the 60 vote threshold to pass things. We need to let all the spending expire in the continuing resolution and make anyone who wants to spend any money pass a standalone bill that requires at least 60 votes.
Make a case for it.
What do you think?
I don't. I just heard that. I don't know. I mean, it's there's a lot of spending. A lot of it is necessary. We've cut the discretionary and unfortunately military down to pretty bare bones right now. The real issue on spending, and this is the thing that I try to drive into people. 72% of what the federal government spends is autopilot spending. It has nothing to do with what Congress appropriates. Social Security, Medicare, interest on the debt.
Yeah.
And that's where, when you look at the debt trajectory in 20 or 30 years, that's where
that unserviced debt. I mean, that's what's going to be most problematic for us in the not so distant future.
That's
I know there are the Bernie Sanders of the world say, Social Security isn't running out of money. In fact, we should spend more money on Social Security. Yeah, that math just doesn't add up.
Yeah, and if you look at Paul, this is what I respect about Paul. I mean, he had told me at one point, he got to a point in his life he decided he wanted to stay out here. Yeah, bless you.
Thank you.
And then he said, you know what? I felt liberated to talk about the things like Medicare. This was the third rail of politics. Nobody ever talked about it. Now it's in the House Republican budget, which is a step. We just need Democratic partnership on the other side.
All right. So, Kesu 1997, tell us what you think about Donald Trump. And, maybe to broaden it out, this idea of outsider versus inside the Beltway.
So outsider, inside, I think every presidential election, the outsider always has an advantage at first, and that may maintain this time, or it may do what other elections have done, which is it ends up being, the Mitt Romney of 2012.
When the incumbent can't run.
Yeah. When it comes to Donald Trump, look, I have a lot of respect for what he's done in business. But just being honest is, when he talks about foreign policy, his foreign policy is very surface level. To say basically let the Russians take over the Middle East is not a thought out foreign policy in the Middle East. To let the Russians take over, in essence, one of the most important parts of the world would be devastating to our future and devastating to what we see over there. So I have a lot of respect for him as a person. He's just obviously not my choice for president.
One thing I would say, he spoke at the No Labels conference today, and so he came out and there was the scrum of reporters, and they flocked to him like he's never given an interview.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for a party, Republican Party, to say, that the liberal bias in the media means we don't get enough attention, he's getting a tremendous amount of attention.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why more Republicans don't, not the style that Reince Priebus did, kind of asking him to pull back, but maybe sit with him and find out, shore his ideas up or find out where he stands on certain issues.
I'll tell you, one of the things that rubs me wrong about Donald Trump is there's a lot of I, me, I,
But isn't that politicians speak?
Yeah, I think some of them. But look, if you're running for president, you need to talk about us. You need to talk about where we can go. And it's a lot about himself. And he's made a lot of comments in the past about women and other things that, I think maybe in a Republican primary, the shock value is not there at this point, or maybe maybe it's passed when it was brought up.
I disagree with you there. I think a lot of people speak in these sort of empty, vague platitudes. They're not really saying anything, and it feels like, one party is identical to the next. And, although I wouldn't vote for someone like Donald Trump because I'm a limited government libertarian, I look at what he's saying about immigration. There are people like, oh, finally, someone is saying something about an issue that is so important to me that no one really addresses.
But if you look at, like, immigration, for instance, what does he say? He says, well, we need to deport 15 million people in 2 years. It's unrealistic. It's not true. You can't do it. I was in Harlingen, Texas. I was the only not Hispanic person there. And I went through thinking, how would you deport the illegals in this city? Do you surround it with the National Guard and have entry and exit points? That's not America.
Oh, no, it's very problematic. But the point is, he's touched on such an emotional issue that a lot of people feel underserviced.
Absolutely.
Well, and how do you argue against it? I mean, because I think the establishment has gotten themselves into a place where they're on the defense saying, basically, well, no, we can't really do anything, and they throw their hands up. And I think the voters in the party, they don't want to hear that anymore.
Right, I agree.
They don't want to hear this, like, that's not true, we can't do that. They're sick and tired of it. That's why they were so sick and tired of John Boehner. Because they want someone to come up, whether it's realistic or not, who's going to say, we can do this, we can make America great again. It's just a bad posture for anyone running against Donald Trump.
It's tough, but I'll tell you, it's sad when people put out unachieved, and I think some of our leadership has done this, unfortunately, too much, and some of the folks is put out unrealistic goals. The idea that we can pass bills proactively without the presidency of the United States. The president, according to our Constitution, he has to sign a bill to get it done. If he's not going to, you have to have 67 votes.
You can still present it to him.
And we do this. Out of the House, we pass stuff all the time. We pass 5 bills a week. You don't hear much about it. But what we've said on immigration is you have to utterly have border security, Border Patrol. I worked that as a National Guard pilot. I worked the border. We have to secure that border and then have a realistic discussion about what comes next.
A1-886, Trump is a can-do all the way. And you have people kind of going back and forth on here. I have a question for you just about the speakership.
Yeah.
Do you foresee that Boehner would want to hang in there?
No.
No, he really doesn't, does he?
I think he's
so now you have somebody who doesn't want the job. And is it peer pressure that gets Paul Ryan in? That's another person who might not want the job. I mean, maybe things need to change so that people actually want this job. I'm curious. We talked about this on Fox Report last night. The Freedom Caucus really don't get treated very well. So if they're pushing against the establishment...
Let me say that. First off, I don't know what the establishment is. You hear that a lot.
John Boehner taking away committee assignments.
Well, but listen, if you're going to vote against the very discipline of what's necessary for a party to stand together and be united, that is a big issue. You look at I'm friends with a lot of the Freedom Caucus.
That's too much power concentrated in the speakership, and I think that's what the Freedom Caucus is looking for, is to go back to a time where the Speaker of the House wasn't so powerful that he would use these punitive measures in order to control people, because the House was set up to be a boiling cauldron of passion and ideas. Whereas, and that's absolutely true. And that's why you guys are reelected every 2 years. The Senate, the upper chamber, I mean, that is supposed to be a place where cooler heads
But I think there's a lot of misinterpretation that some of these actions, and there were very few of them, were actually taken out by John Boehner. Most people don't know that behind closed doors, Boehner was actually opposed to some of the actions that were taken against just a couple Freedom Caucus, just a couple. It really wasn't as big. But the other thing is, you look at some of them, and I'm friends with a lot of them, but you look at some of them on TV, and they call people out by name. It's just not, it's not good.
You said something I thought that was really poignant about Republicans. They want perfect.
They do.
All the time. They want somebody who's perfect. And I was thinking not even just in the House, but in the presidential election. I mean, we tend to eat our own and shoot inside the tent in a way that Democrats just don't. I mean, they keep their business inside the family. I mean, they really do, for as much hatred that's happening in the Democratic Party.
But isn't it easier for them, though, because they have so many more members of the media who vote like they do?
Who cover for them. I mean, they don't like to cover them on violence. But I will say Nancy Pelosi does have her caucus in line. And when she retaliates, which we know that she does, they rarely fall out of line. When John Boehner tries to enforce some law and order, I mean, everybody just goes off the handle.
And we don't want to get to a point where, there's discipline enforced and whatever. What I think we need to do is get to a point where we all realize that 247 of us standing together can achieve way more than the inter-party fight that's been going on. And, you listen to some of the talk show hosts, you look at some of the groups in Washington, D.C., and 95% of their focus is just focused on somebody being a rhino or not truly a conservative. This is the most conservative Republican Party in a very long time.
I was actually going to ask you about the media's treatment of the GOP, but first I wanted to let you know that Thor and Scribbles agree with you, Kennedy.
Thank you. Thor and Scribbles.
That's right. Scribbles.
Fine Americans.
But the media's treatment of the GOP since McCarthy withdrew from the race, do you think it's been fair?
Well, it's
They've
never
been calling
fair.
it chaos within the GOP.
It's never fair, but I think it actually has been pretty accurate to say there's a lot of chaos. There is. I mean, we're kind of trying to find where we need to go, and truthfully, the best thing for the party right now would be to let our presidential contender, whoever comes to the top, take the message of the Republican Party and drive it that way. But
is it going to be Donald
So you
Trump?
guys are the opposite of Zappos.
So.
You need a boss.
We need a boss. We need a boss.
Maybe Tony Shea.
We have
doesn't
great
have to be a
people.
speaker.
That's right.
Or doesn't have to be a congressman.
We'll take him. We have great people. We have a great base. We just need to all come together now and realize, if we can get 5 yards and a first down, that's good.
Wow, back to football.
Yeah.
I love it. All sides.
We have been a
By the way,
boiling
Terry
cauldron of
Bradshaw for
passion and
speaker
ideas.
came from one of our online chatters. Great to have you.
That was
Come
great.
back soon.
Thank you. I had a great
we're
time.
going to wrap it up here online. We'll see you back for the TV version of us at noon Eastern tomorrow on the Fox News Channel.